What's a video game that you love that most people never heard of? Suikoden. To an extent, at least, RPG fans are aware of the series, but anyone who isn't a big fan of the genre probably hasn't heard of it compared to something like the Final Fantasy games. There's a remaster of the first two games coming out this year. I highly recommend this series to anyone with at least a passing interest in the genre. It's a really fun series with a lot of unique features and a massive cast of characters. A staple of the series is having 108 recruitable characters and an awesome story. It's been my all-time favorite series forever. And total conversion mod of Skyrim, but really game on its own and free on Steam if you own Skyrim. I just love the storytelling. I laughed and cried several times while playing, and that almost never happens for me with other games. The synchro is also really good for being a completely fan-made game. I still watch Let's Plays of it to see others discover certain twists of the story and fall in love with it. The Hobbit. This was my favorite game as a child because I just love the book. Despite the old graphics, it gives of a cozy feeling. Road Rash and Jet Moto were super fun racing games that I loved. I also super loved the game Dark Cloud. Once I was in high school and in college, I was introducing all my friends to my very beloved Couch Coop game Champions of Norath 1-2. I also used to make my friends download Space Him when we would all hang out in groups. Smartphone Coop game. As a kid, I straight threw down on learning games like Jumpstart First Grade, Reading Blaster 912, and Math for the Real World. I showed all my friends Wondersong. Super wholesome game about a bard trying to save the world without bringing anyone to harm. Lovable characters, tons of interactions, adorable story. Took me about 10 hours to complete because I spent so much time talking to NPCs, despite being a 7-8 hour game. The gameplay was really easy and you couldn't really lose, but regardless, it was a magnificent game. If you're looking for a chill, relaxing indie game that's purely wholesome, 100 recommend giving this charming little game a shot. Dark Tower by Broderbund Software. I'm pretty sure it was a game on a 5 floppy disk that I played on a monochrome computer. It was about a guy whose car broke down, and he wanders into a haunted castle. You typed in commands like walk forward or go upstairs to visit different rooms. There were a few ways to get killed, but the good ending is you finding King Arthur's ghost or something. I've searched high and low for any trace of this game on the internet, but it's like it never existed. The Seventh Guest. It's an old game, early 1990s. For the time, it had amazing graphics, live action scene which, believe me, was crazy back then, and it was wildly entertaining. I remember reading that this game was responsible for a considerable uptick in CD-ROM drives sales back then. Yeah, computers didn't necessarily come with CD-ROM drives. When I mention it to some hardcore gamer friends, even ones as old as I am, some don't recognize the title at all. Radiated Stories. Which is surprising because it's a Square Enix RPG by the same team that made Star Ocean. It's such a great game. There's a ton of NPCs, many of whom are recruitable to your cause, who all have individual schedules, personalities, and likes-dislikes. But what I really like is that partway through the game you have to pick which side of a conflict you're going to be on, and the game is completely different depending on which side you choose. Monument Valley. You play as a girl finding a path through all these perspective-based puzzles. You rotate, slide and manipulate pieces of, or even the entire world to make a visual path between locations, even if it doesn't make spatial sense. You eventually learn to walk on walls and ceilings, make flat paths take you up or down a floor, and even love the barely animated pillar while wandering MC Escher's wet dreams. All on a quiet quest for redemption. Morrowind. Why everyone know about only Skyrim and Oblivion? Devil Dagger's best game for amphetamine users, just accept it as a fact. Clive Barker's Jericho. Yeah, the shooting is mediocre, but it compensates with the most hellish sights ever. Manhunt 1-2 is just annoying. Viking Battle for Asgard. Unnecessary length but extremely satisfying to play. Mr. Lovis is a cult game in Hungary, best trash game ever. There's a game on Steam called Valley for about £12 that I've never seen anybody else talk about. I couldn't explain it to you. The graphics are decent for a small game but nothing astounding. The gameplay is fun enough but nothing groundbreaking there either, but the feel of the game had me straight up upset when it ended. Only a 3-hour game at least for my run through of it, and I still think about it often. Azure Dreams. It came out a year after Pokémon first hit the scene. I truly believe if it hadn't been for Pokémon, Azure Dreams would have been a really big hit. It's up there with Legend of Mana and the like, you know. It's a monster rancher, treasure hunter, love match, mix and match monster creator, dungeon crawler, City God, nobody I've ever met has ever heard of it. Probably more its age than flying under the radar, but my all-time favorite game regardless of genre is an old Sierra point-and-click adventure game from 1993 called Gabriel Knight Sins of the Fathers. It got a 20th anniversary edition released on Steam a few years back, which to be fair isn't that bad, but in my opinion it cannot compare to the OG, pixel art version. Legend of the Mystical Ninja in SNES, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, and Goemon's Great Adventure both on N64. They're part of an old Konami series called Ganbare Goemon, but most of the games were only released in Japan. The three I mentioned were all really fun, especially Goemon's Great Adventure. The series was a nice mix of platforming and action RPG. The Guardian Legend 1988. Zelda-style open world with linear, run-and-gun boss levels, and a somewhat Metroid-ish story and setting. Decent gameplay. But the music this game is drastically underappreciated in that department of real gem and 8-bit era soundtracks. On the same level as Mega Man 2, Emo, Neverwinter Nights, 8-bit style on AOL. I can remember when we passed 100 players at one time in game. Circa 93, could be a few years off, so long ago. Pretty sure I was one of the first people on Earth to buy a virtual item. Mailed a personal check to some dude for a cloak of elven kind. Played on a 386DX. Rad, I don't know why, it wasn't super unpopular or anything, it had great reviews, and it got ported for multiple systems, but no one I talked to has even heard of it. 80s themed post-apocalyptic roguelite. Unbelievably difficult for my feeble motor skills. I'm still stuck on level 2. It's been years. Okami and Okamiden. They were ahead of their time and they're extremely underrated. My favorite games of all time. Got a few friends addicted to Okami recently. It's that good lol. Okami is on Steam along with most consoles, while Okamiden is stuck as a DS game but compatible on any DS or 3DS device. Mail order monsters on the Commodore 64. You bought monster parts, put them together, train them, then battle them against the computer. Your friends could build more stairs and put them on disk, and you could fight. Fantasy, also on C64. Basically Fallout but fantasy. Loved that game. Faxinado on the NES. Used to play that until all hours for weeks. Never understood what was going on at all, but I would play the hell out of it. Watched someone run it on YouTube last year or so. Nope. Still no idea how any part of that works. The soundtrack is adhesive. Many moons ago when I was but a lad, I had a game called Cool Spot for my Mega Drive. It was a side-scrolling platformer and the titular spot was your character, who at the time was mascot for 7-Up, and the whole game was one big advert for 7-Up basically. Anyone remember what? It was this awesome, surprisingly non-buggy grindhouse-style game from Bethesda. You had swords, and guns, and could shoot from any position. You got style points for killing while sliding or doing acrobatics. I loved that game. Darkest of Days. Not the best made game by a mile, but its entire premise of being a first-person shooter where you are a time traveler going to bloody battles in history to protect the timeline from rogue time travelers was great. Shadow Hearts series PS2. Legend of Legaia PS1. Poi Poi PS1. Bust-a-Move dancing game on PS1. Fatal Frame. Singularity. Clock Tower. Broken Sword. And the weirdest two games are Poi Poi on PS1. Art Truck Battle on PS1. Star Control 2 is popular among nerds of a certain age, but the genre and series died out, killed by a dodgy threequel like Master of Orion, but still one of the greatest games ever made. Hoping Starfield scratches that itch. Legend of the Dragoon on PS1, it had some popularity in its day, but I've never met anyone in person who played it. FR, the game's edition's quick-time events feel a lot like Uzushi Practice and Judo Class. Quarantine, a computer game from the mid-90s. It's a first-person taxi driving game, set in a post-apocalyptic world. You would take fares around, and kill people with weapons you upgrade your car with. I've played like 99 of all the games and hear that people say that people never heard of. I am just really old or played a lot of the games. I would probably say Abomination for PC or Tron 2.0 from 2003, Neslo G-Man, Shatterhand, North vs South, Faxinado. Genesis Echo Series James Pond 3. PS2 Jitaru Man, Magic Hangle, Tales of the Abyss, Eco, Devil Summoner. PS3 Dragon's Crown. PC Caesar 2. My older brother and I were really into some of the old Koei games for SNES and PC. So many hours spent on uncharted waters, Airbase and Genghis Khan. We were strange kids, in retrospect. Soldier of Fortune 2 Double Helix. X200B. Not sure if it was popular or not, but damn, I loved that game. The ability to slash chunks off a corpse in 2002 was mind-blowing to me. Creatures. It was a super early artificial life game from the 90s. I played the shit out of it in elementary school. Yes, I am a huge nerd and regret not becoming a scientist. Everyone knows about it, but often overlooked. Minesweeper. It's my absolute favorite. My friends laugh at me for loving it, and I do love to bring it up to annoy them. What Remains of Edith Finch? Those who have played it know how amazing the storytelling is. Do yourself a favor and look it up. Still top 3 favorite games of all time. River City Girls. Played it in multiplayer with a friend, I loved it lol. Also for a classic, Captain Claw was my first ever video game on a Windows XP. I was obsessed. Atari ST game epic featuring a spaceship. Wonderful music and animation. Also existed on Amiga, I believe. Maybe available as abandonware on PC or with emulator. Avalon Code on the NDS. It had some unique gameplay elements that I just really adored and had a decent story. Even dating. Wish it would have been more popular. Theme Hospital. There is now a spiritual sequel for it called 2 Point Hospital, which brings back all the wonderful memories and charm of Theme Hospital. Giant Citizen Kabuto. I scrolled as long as I could and didn't see anyone else say it, but damn, that was a funny game. Never played another like it.